Greetings in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, Brother Brandon O'Doy, Assistant Minister to Alvin L. Daniels Jr. at the Hope Church of Christ. This is our Community Care Conference, our weekly edition of dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. We want real, relatable, and reliable information that we can pass along to you, the people who are looking to see how we can, with the help of the Lord, move and navigate past these unforeseen and uncertain times. And surely God will be a part of that plan. Our faith in him is our bedrock, but we have members of our church family and those of the community who have come and agreed to join us to give us information that can help us with certain specific needs that we have. And we're here to continue to do that on this fourth installment on this Sunday. I want to introduce again to you Sister Roxana Dunn, who has a master's in social work and so many other things. And she's going to get us started today with our topic. And we just invite you to tune in and share in the knowledge that we're going to have. Sister Dunn, take it away.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Today I wanted to talk about, so last week, going back to last week, the superintendent of Miami-Dade County, he made an announcement, talk about how 75% of the students aren't logging on to virtual education. And so I guess with that being said, it sparked a lot of conversation on social media, amongst parents, amongst teachers, amongst students. And, you know, I've been reading a lot and seeing a lot. And I just wanted to kind of just address the disparities of virtual learning. So this topic kind of stemmed from a few posts that I seen that people made on Facebook. One post, somebody mentioned, we give you laptops, we give you wireless internet, we give you food, we give you this, all of these things that the school board is giving, but they're trying to figure out, the question was, why aren't you doing the work, or why aren't you logging on? And on the other hand, I've seen people who talk about, well, I have 4 kids that's in middle school, high school, and elementary school. I'm a wife, I cook and clean, I work from home, and I'm able to do it, so there's no excuse. So it struck a conversation to me, and it was very thought-provoking because, you know, while I do see the concerns for everybody who are part of the virtual learning process, would be a parent, teacher, or student, I learned and I saw that there are some disparities amongst the virtual learning program. So one post I wanted to address, what it says, basically, we're giving you everything, why aren't you doing the work? So in my mind, as a social worker, of course, my wheels are always turning. I'm thinking to myself, it's not so much of why, it's so much of what. What's happening that the work is not being done? What's happening that you're not locking on at home? And so we're living in a different day and time now. And the day and time is where everything is virtual now. And so with that being said, virtual school was a place for a lot of students that it was their sanctuary. So we're living in a different position where students are home now. Students used to be at school from 8 to 10 hours a day. So now they have that position to where they're home for 8 to 10 hours a day. And so it made me think about a lot of different disparities that's happening at home, whether it be the child doesn't get the attention they have that they were getting at school. The parent, now that they're in a situation where they're home 8 to 10 hours a day, because that's probably the amount of time that the kids spend in school, everybody's trying to figure out the why and not trying to figure out what's happening in the home that is not getting done. So today I have with me Lakeisha Johnson, who is an educator in Broward County. And, you know, I asked her questions and she responded, and I'm going to just allow her to introduce herself. Keisha, go ahead. Unmute.
She say, okay, she say either or. You gonna see me or just hear me?
Can you hear me? Oh, yes?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right. My name is Lakeisha Johnson. I've been teaching in Broward County for 23 years. I am currently a 2nd grade teacher. I have currently been awarded 2019-2020 Teacher of the Year.
So our first question is like, what are the disparities that you're seeing with the virtual learning?
Well, one of them I see is that I noticed that, okay, like when you go into school, of course, it's the teacher's responsibility to teach the students. With virtual learning, everyone has to be on board. It has to be everyone, all hands on deck. First of all, the teachers have to be trained. Like I went through a webinar training the whole week before virtual learning started because we do Canvas. So I had to do a webinar training for Canvas. I also had to consult with other colleagues. I also had to get on YouTube to train myself in Canvas. Also, the parents, not only do teachers have to be trained, thoroughly trained, but students must be trained. Students must know how to do the virtual learning system that the district puts out. As I said, that our system is Canvas. So students have to learn how to operate Canvas in order to do the assignment because that is their grade. If they don't know how to operate Canvas, they won't, of course, get their grades for the marking period. Parents also have to know how to operate the system. I always tell my parents, I communicate with my parents. If you don't know how to operate the system, let me know. I will train you step by step. So they have to be on board. So it's like all hands on deck. Everybody has to be on board because the thing is, I know how students are. I've been teaching kids a long time. If kids see that their parents are not monitoring them, they will get on games and they won't do the assignments that they're supposed to do. So that's important. Another thing is, of course, as I say, a lot of this is parent involvement. Parents really have to be involved because they are home, they're doing their own jobs. And not only do they do their own jobs at home, they have to monitor what their kids are doing online. So it's more parent involvement than it's what they did before. It was a routine. They took their kids to school. When the kids came home, they helped them with homework. And after that is dinner time. And after that it's time for bed. But now the whole responsibility is on them. Their kids are with them. And I've had parents to struggle and tell me, look, I haven't been in school in so long. I don't know how to do this math, or I don't know how to do this. And they're getting frustrated. So I have to walk them step by step as to what to do. So it's a lot of parent involvement that happens with virtual learning process.
Okay, so basically what I hear you saying is that everybody needs to be trained to do the virtual learning. So my question is, have or will it be some training for the students and the parents in the future? Because I know it seems as if we're going to be in virtual learning to the end of the school year, probably until next year. Yes. So are there any like plans to train the parents and the children collectively?
Well, they do have a website, and I know when the kids log into Canvas, they do have a training for the parents and the students for them to log on. So because by now my parents are starting to navigate through the system because they're calling me less and less, but they do have a link that they can go to for webinar training, so they're able to navigate through the Canvas virtual learning system.
Okay, thank you. Yes. So the next question is, if anybody have any questions, you guys can type them in, or whatever the case, reach out to us and we'll answer them. Because of time, we don't want to take so much time of answering questions. But if you have questions while we're going live, you can just type them in. Also, the next question is, what are you doing to normalize the virtual learning experience for the students and the parents?
Okay. One thing that I'm doing, I'm very personal with my parents. From day one, at open house, I put my phone number on the board. A lot of teachers don't do this. They may think I'm crazy for doing this, but I do this. And I do this to, of course, control the discipline in my classroom, because in the beginning of the school year, I adopt everybody. It's not only the parents, not only the students, I adopt the parents. So they're all part of my family in the beginning of the school year. I adopt a whole new family. That's my attitude. I adopt a whole new family in the beginning of the school year, the students and the parents, not just the students. I have to know my parents, all of my parents. So I make sure that they have my personal phone number. So when I have a problem with discipline, I text them. Some I put on daily text plans. If there's a problem with discipline, I have them on a daily text plan. In this case, in this virtual learning process, I text my parents twice a day. I text them at 7 o'clock in the morning to wake them up, and before at around 3:30 p.m. I told them my hours are between 7 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. You can contact me, call me, text me all throughout the day. So if they're experiencing any difficulty trying to work the system, they can let me know. I'm always available. For students, we have a program called Microsoft Teams. To normalize it for the students, we have a program called Microsoft Teams, in which we allows teachers to communicate with their students on the laptop. So if the students have any questions, we can talk with them one-on-one, or put them in a group, or if there's a certain skill that we can review that particular skill with them. If there's a skill that they don't understand, we can review that skill to them. And that allows us to be in face-to-face contact with the students.
Awesome, thank you. So my next question is, it's kind of like two-part. And so you did tell me about the learning resource as far as going online for additional training or resources. So I have a question for those parents or for those students who may be dealing with disabilities, who are on IEPs, who do take speech pathology, or who does see a social work or behavioral health provider at the school. Are those resources still being offered to the student? And if so, how are they being offered?
Well, I know you talked about the IEP. I'm not, of course, I'm not an ESC specialist, but there are various learning resources that they can access. I know there's like an ESC teacher on my team, and she goes through various resources, and she works with her students to make sure that they're understanding. We have a program called iReady. We use that across Broward County to, and whatever resources that we feel that the students need to learn, we plug it in Canvas, because Canvas allows us to plug in any type of websites, any type of learning resources that would allow students of any type of disability, to help them understand what they need to do. We have iReady. iReady is for everybody. Through iReady, the teachers are able to adjust any math levels. If the students are low in math, if their math levels are low, they're able to adjust the lessons so the students can work the math lessons. And reading also, any reading lessons that they're struggling with, the teacher can work on the iReady to adjust the lessons so the students can be able to operate those lessons. So Canvas, as I said, Canvas is a very effective learning tool, and you can plug in if you have an ESC student, if you have even a gifted student in your class, you can be able to plug in various resources in Canvas so they can work on. You can enrich them, you can remediate them. So there are different types of resources. Another excellent resource is BrainPop. I use BrainPop. BrainPop helps with science and social studies. It's a science and social studies resource that improves their science and social studies skills. Mayan is another one. Whatever reading level the child is on, Mayan is a excellent reading source. It has various texts of different levels. All they have to do is type in their level, and they can get right to it. So and of course there's the infamous YouTube. You can pull various lessons on YouTube and plug it in Canvas. And all they have to do is click it, and they go right to the lesson. For example, last week, I wanted to teach my students about suffixes. And all I had to do was go to YouTube, I plugged it in Canvas. All they had to do was click on it, and there was a teacher teaching them a lesson on suffixes. So you can do various things on Canvas. All they have to do is click on it, watch the video, or learn the lesson. That's all they have to do, and work in their notebooks. So, and as I said, it's at various levels, whether it's ESC to gifted, you can do that. That's what teachers do.
Okay, thank you. So my last question to you is, are any tips for parents or students that you want to give, or that you feel like is essential for maybe other teachers to know, parents or students?
Okay. Well, for parents, you have to know what activities your students are working on. Because as I said, I've been teaching kids for 23 years and they can easily run game on their parents. If they don't, and I have experienced this since online learning, all the parents have to do is turn their head and they're on a game. So they have to make sure to monitor what their kids are doing online. That's very important. And I tell my parents, when I do my twice a day text, I tell my parents, check your child's work to make sure, and I require my students to have notebooks. Check your child's work to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. So they have to become more involved in their learning. If the parents become more involved in their learning, their students will become more engaged. For students, they must log in every day online. If they're a student, they must log in every day online. And students are thinking, I know you gave the statistic about the 75%. Students are thinking that online learning doesn't count. If they're not sitting at a classroom desk every day, okay, this is a game. Online learning doesn't count. Yes, it does count, because it's counting to their 4th marking period grade. So they have to log on every day. They have to do the assignments that their teacher assigns to them, and they have to do the test, and it does count. And I tell my parents, whatever test that they're doing, it goes into my Pinnacle grade book. So it does count. So a major tip is both parents and students have to take it seriously, because it is like, it does count just like they're sitting in a regular classroom, but they all have to get involved.
Awesome. So thank you so much. I just received a message from Sister Tanisha, and she also said that we need to take the accountability of the disparities of the Black community. A lot of these parents are essential workers, so a lot of them are being left alone to themselves, having to do their own work, having other adult responsibilities as well too. Maybe have younger siblings that they have to look at as well too. So definitely, Tanisha, I agree with you 100%, and that's kind of where I was going with this conversation today. Thank you so much, Sister Johnson, for just kind of just explaining to us what's going on. But we need to think about the disparities that's going on in the house. While we want the children to learn, and we want them to log on and do their work, we're not thinking about the conditions in which these children go home to. We're not thinking about school has been a safe haven for most of these kids who are in Black communities for so long. They get breakfast, lunch, snack. Sometimes they're there from 8 to 10 hours. 10 hours meaning that they probably in the YMCA or after school program. They're not getting the guidance at home most of the day. They're getting the guidance at school. So when the pandemic struck, we just thought, okay, we need to start virtual school and we need to get this rolling. But we never thought about the disparities that's going on in the house. We have children who are victims of abuse, who are victims of neglect. And we don't think about things like that. And on top of that, you throw a pandemic in there, and then you want them, you give them the laptops, you give them the internet, you give them everything that they need, but you still want them to learn, but you have not addressed the social emotional aspect of the learning, of how we move forward. Because I see a lot of teachers think, the kids should be able to do the work. We're giving them everything they need. But at the very same time, has anyone sat down and talked to these kids about what's the reality of the situation and what's happening? And these kids aren't blind. They turn on the news, they see what's going on, and, and it bothers them. So my question is to the person who posts certain things about, they should be able to do the work, but we give them everything they need. Have you considered the disparities that they're dealing with at home or that they're facing with? And we don't think about that, especially as adults or even teachers, because I know teachers sometimes they just think, okay, you got to do the work, but there's also a social emotional learning aspect to it as well too. Have we considered what it was like? Did we talk about the pandemic? Are we talking about coronavirus with the children? But yet we want them to sit down, do the work, learn it, and turn it in. And not only that, we have to think about the parents as well too. The parents are hypervigilant as well too. So not only do you have a child who's hypervigilant and nervous about the future, you have a parent that's hypervigilant and nervous about the future. So the expectation for the child to complete the work and do it in a timely manner, it's not a good expectation for you to have to think that they should be able to sit down and do the work now that they have the luxury, quote unquote, of being home. Because it's not a luxury when you're in a pandemic. You know, you're always in that mode of hypervigilance. You know, anxiety is high and stress, depression. So I don't think those are the disparities that we're most talking about. The teachers are most talking about, okay, they're not doing the work. 75% hasn't logged on, but you know what? We're dealing with the pandemic right now. And some of these kids have already suffered trauma at home and in their lives. And here's some more trauma on top of the trauma to kind of add insult to injury. So.
And Roxanne, I think some of the things that you're addressing right now are just super critical in the sense that we as people who are in the education system are trying to do what's responsible. So in other words, we have a global pandemic. Typically kids are in school. So everybody's response to that is let's throw resources at it. The first resource we threw, we had, food distribution centers set up throughout, the counties. That's the first thing that everybody triggered. If these kids don't go to school, some of them won't have food, which is good. The second piece is now we begin to, we know we have to go to virtual learning. So now let's give the kids the resources, the laptops, whatever the case may be, and try to solve the issue of the disparity between economics as it relates to who can actually participate in education. We still haven't gotten to the main issue that you've addressed, and I think it's a great point. And see, in a situation like Surge Academy, which is the school that Hope Church of Christ operates, we're in a blessed position because we're a virtual school every single day of the year. So when you come to school, you learn on your computer, and then we have proctors and teachers and those who supplement, via counseling and tutoring, so on and so forth. So our education didn't take any breaks. We continued to move forward. But the thing that we had to do was we had to get our kids to wake up, dress up for school, sit in front of a computer. When I do chapel in the morning, they've got to, be there for that. They've got to get in front of the computer. We got to see them. They've got to see us. They can't be sitting in bed. And when the first week we did it, we didn't require that. We noticed that things were kind of falling off. The second week we said, hey, listen, you got to get up, get dressed, just like you're going to school, and all of a sudden the achievement rose. But as to your point, the environment, and we talked to our kids about some of the emotional things that they're going through, some of the kids are not processing this, the way that we would think. And then the issue is some of our young people, and I know this is true all across Dade and Broward County and even Palm Beach, there are more pertinent issues than getting an education, survival, economics. And see, that's what's not being accounted for. And, it's just a scenario that we have to address. We're able to do it because we're a Christian school. We talk about our feelings. We talk and we ask the kids how they are. Most of them kind of don't know where to think right now. But I wanted to point out one thing before I throw it back to you, Roxana, that Sister Melanie did make she asked the question, what is the district doing to meet students' social, emotional needs during this time? And Brother DeMarcus Grayson, who works in the sort of counseling areas of schools, said that there are agencies that partner with the district to post a therapist or provide information of therapy regarding social and emotional needs. The company he worked for went straight into teletherapy as soon as the pandemic hit. And we're still praying for you, Brother DeMarcus. We know that God is going to provide another opportunity for you. But we appreciate that information because that's key.
Absolutely.
Courses that are being put forward, and we need to know about that as the church and the people of God. We've got about 8 minutes left. I want to go to Brother Daines. It looks like he wants to come in. He's got his hand raised. And then Roxana, you pick it up from there, and then we've got to cut our time short. Brother Daines, go right ahead.
I don't know, but I was thinking about long-term on this whole pandemic situation with the gross disparities that we have in education, period. Then on top of that, we have this pandemic where the kids have to go home and learn from there. and with parents who were not prepared for it, nor had the posture for it. And we have a great deal of expectations on each home that really don't have the posture for it. I'm thinking long-term, and please chime in on this, Keisha, that after this is over, the school system may see some benefits for them to, like some of these schools that are already challenged, to cut the budgets and say, hey, maybe y'all need to do this all of the time. And the latent consequence of that would be our kids in our communities, because they're cutting the budget even more, because this has benefited in a lot of ways. That long term, this may be something that we have to get used to. Is anybody thinking in those terms now?
Absolutely. It has prompted me to look into other aspects of what I'm doing with my consulting business, and I'm also looking into doing social emotional learning. I'm actually working on a contract now to get in Miami-Dade or Broward schools. So I think it's prompting a lot of new normals, ways of thinking, ways of educating, because COVID-19, it actually exposed a lot of disparities that's already been happening in the Black community. So there's going to be a lot of growth opportunities for different services as such as like teletherapy. One thing that I've done in the past was teletherapy, and it's very good, but to an extent. And I think that one thing that parents should also look into is their kids' insurance. If they have Sunshine Insurance, they offer free behavioral health teletherapy. So look into your insurance plan that your kids are under. And teletherapy, behavioral health therapy, it should be free under your plan. So that's something that we need to look into, and that's something that I'm digging into as well, to get additional resources, because I do have friends now who have already transitioned to teletherapy, and who's looking more now into the social learning aspect of dealing with the kids and working in the schools. Anything else from anybody? And so I wanted to say something about Trudy's. What did she say? She talked about how the challenges assume that the parents and the children know how to work these technologies. And that was one of the disparities that I mentioned as well too, because some of these kids, especially if you're living in an African-American community, kids are being raised by grandmas, aunts, cousins, even parents who are illiterate. Some of them can't read, and some of them don't have the technology. They don't have the technology savvy. So that's something that we also have to consider as well too, is that we assume that just because we give them this technology and all of these other things, that they know how to use it. So yes, definitely training is a big part of it. That I think we should just raise a flag to when it comes to somebody else mentioned something. Let me see, I'm sorry. But how can teachers promote student social emotional learning at this time? If these needs are met first, teachers may see more engaged students. Very true, Melanie. I think that's a very good point, and that's why I've been doing my research and making a contract with some of the schools, the school board system, Miami-Dade and Broward County, because it does seem like it's a long-term thing. And also have talks with your children about what's going on, and because the schools aren't doing it, they basically just gave them these laptops and say, here, do the work, and give them all these assignments. So I think we just have to be realistic about the situation and sit down and have these conversations with our children ourselves, because the kids aren't gonna, the parents aren't gonna, the teachers aren't gonna do it because they're worried and pushing, do the work, you have the resources, now do the education part of it. But okay, sure, yeah. So my thing is, as a parent, you have to have this conversation with your child and find some kind of way to do it. Or we have behavioral health professionals. I see April Bailey just logged on. We have DeMarcus. We have professionals in the church who can help with that aspect of it. So any more questions, comments? Let me just read over the chat before.
Let me say this as we begin to wrap up. We have 2 minutes remaining. I'll just simply say this. When it comes to when it comes to one of the things we've got to consider, Governor DeSantis has been outspoken about the fact that parents are going to have the opportunity to reclassify their kids, allow them to retake this current year over again. And one of the reasons why he's probably doing this, and Keisha, I want to go to you real briefly on this, is because he knows there are certain things that the schools just cannot provide during a time like this. What's your thought on that?
Oh goodness. Because I just feel that like, okay, because I know they have to do away with testing. Okay, all right. Is that what you're referring to? That they have to do away with testing?
Right. So he's saying because there's no test, we can't, test everybody. We're going to give parents the opportunity to come back.
Because they can allow their kids to go on, but they can't allow their kids to come to be held back. And I'm just going to give an example of a student that I've had.
You got to go really quickly.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry. But she's reading because kids have to score in a level M to be promoted into third grade, because I tell parents third grade is a very tough grade because it does involve testing. And I had to talk to a parent tonight to a couple
Did we lose Keisha?